Let's talk about one of the shortest, simplest, and most powerful words we have. No. We say it all the time, right? But for literally centuries, some of the smartest people have been trying to figure out what it really means. So today, we're going to dive in and see what they found.
Okay, think about this for a second. What if every single no you've ever said, whether you're saying no to a cup of coffee or you're telling someone no, that's not right, what if all of those come from the exact same single fundamental source? That's the big idea we're going to unpack.
Because, no isn't just a word. It's an action. It's a tool we use. And once you start to see it that way, it unlocks this whole new perspective on how we actually talk to each other.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the puzzle of no itself. Then we'll get into the big idea that denial is the single source for all of it. We'll look at the rules of dialogue that make it all work, peel back some of negation's hidden layers, and then wrap up with why this whole reframing really matters. All right, first things first, we have to understand the problem we're trying to solve. You see, no seems simple, but it actually wears a ton of different hats in our conversations. Linguists have a great name for this. They call it the many faces of negation. And this is where it gets kind of wild. I mean, check these out. Each one feels different, right? The sky is not green. That's a simple fact correction. A quick no to an offer of coffee is just, well, a rejection. But that third one, the King of France is not bald. Whoa, that's not about his hair. It's denying the idea that there even is a King of France to begin with. So how can one tiny word do all of that? Well, the solution, according to this really powerful theory, is to just stop thinking of no as a passive word. We need to start seeing it for what it is, an action. And that action is the speech act of denial. This right here is the heart of it all. The idea is that all those different faces of no we just saw, they're not separate things at all. They are all just different flavors of one core action, denial. And that simple shift in perspective changes everything. Now, the fancy name for this idea is rejectivism, and it's a total flip of how people used to think about it. For ages, the thinking was that the logical concept of not came first, and our ability to deny something grew out of that. Rejectivism says, nope, you've got it backwards. Our fundamental human ability to deny, to reject an idea, that's what gives the word not its power in the first place. To really get this, we need to know what an illocutionary act is. It sounds complicated, but it's super simple. It just means that when we speak, we aren't just making sounds. We are doing stuff. We're making a promise, asking a question, stating a fact. And crucially for us, we are denying. Denial is an action we perform with our words. So, here's the bottom line. When you deny something, you're not just being passive. You are actively stepping into the conversation and ruling out what someone else just said. You're basically saying that statement you just made, it has no place in this conversation. It's a power move, just as strong as making a claim yourself. Okay, so if denial is an action in the game of conversation, how do we actually model that? For this theory to hold up, we need some kind of rule book for dialogue. And that's where a framework called Question Answer Semantics, or QAS, comes into play. QAS is kind of perfect for this job because it sees yes and no, affirmation, and denial as the absolute basic building blocks of any conversation. Instead of seeing language as just a string of true or false statements, it models it more like a dance, a back and forth. This lets it map out all those different uses of no in a really elegant way. And this is so important because real human conversation is messy, right? It's not some computer program running on ones and zeros, true and false. It's all about context and what we intend to say and what we both understand. And a dialogue-based model like QAS can actually capture all that beautiful nuance. So, now let's put this theory to the test. Remember that super tricky example, the King of France is not bald? Well, this unified theory solves that puzzle beautifully by showing us that there are actually two hidden layers to the word no. This slide lays it out perfectly. On the one hand, you have what's called narrow scope or internal negation. This is when your no keeps the basic assumptions of the sentence intact. If I say the king is not bald, we both agree there's a king, and I'm just correcting you on the topic of his hair. But on the other hand, you have wide scope or external negation. Here, you're denying the assumption itself. When I say the king is not bald, my focus isn't on his hair. It's on the fact that there is no king. My no rejects the entire premise. Honestly, The fact that this whole model, which is based on the simple act of denial, can so clearly and easily explain the difference between these two types of no, that's a huge win. It really shows you the power of looking at language as something we do, not just something we write down.
Okay, so let's zoom out and land the plane here. Why does any of this actually matter? What's the big picture takeaway from looking at the word no in this whole new way?
Let's just quickly recap our journey. We started with this puzzle, right? The many faces of negation. Then we introduced the core idea that it all comes down to the act of denial. We saw how the QAS framework gives us the rules to model this in actual conversations. And what we're left with is this amazing, unified theory that just makes sense of it all.
So at the end of the day, here's what it all boils down to. No isn't just a switch you flip in a logic problem to make something false. It is one of the most basic, fundamental, and practical tools we have to navigate our conversations, to challenge each other's ideas, and to build a shared reality together. This whole theory does more than just solve a weird linguistic puzzle. It gives us a much richer and more accurate picture of language itself. It shows us that language isn't built on cold, abstract logic. It's built on the deeply human need to agree and disagree, to assert and to deny. It's pretty amazing. And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. If a word as tiny and common as no is secretly this powerful action in disguise, what about other words? What about yes, or sorry, or promise? What other incredible actions are we all performing every single day without even realizing it?